Again, and welcome to another episode of From the Minister's Chair. As I started last week to say, I'm going to attempt and in some sense promise to do this show every week to try to keep the public up to date of what's happening in the ministry. So weekly update of what's happening so that the voters, the population, people that care and love Montserrat can see what's happening specifically in the Ministry of Communication, Works, Energy and Labour. At some points, I may wander out because it's one government and we are still all interconnected. So first thing that's major that's happened this week, as we all know, the UK had their elections yesterday and the Conservative government won with Boris Johnson, the Honourable Boris Johnson, as their leader. That may or may not have certain implications for Montserrat, depending on how the ministers are assigned and what specific policies does Mr. Johnson have for Montserrat. So that's something we're going to have to keep our eyes on. There's a new government, so there are agreements in place already with Montserrat, but what new relationship, what new type of support, non-support will the UK now be engaging with Montserrat? As we also know, the Conservative government was pushing for this whole Brexit. The whole Brexit thing is something that they were pushing for. It is now more likely that occurs. So the question again is, how would that affect Montserrat? What are the implications, etc.? So that's something we have to keep our eyes on. And why that is important, because next week there will be a UK trip to Montserrat with something called the PRIFAM, which is the Financial Aid Mission. So it's basically a preliminary discussion for the aid or recurrent budget or capital budgets, etc. for next year, March. So those discussions are going to take place, start and commence next week. But because of the elections in the UK, I'm going to be interested to see what occurs, and then depending what occurs, I'll be back to inform you, the public, of where things are headed, how things are going, etc. Out of the last program I did last week, some interesting points and observations came out. But as I pointed out last week, all I was doing was to point out, inform the public what exactly did I meet. So one thing that you're given when you first come into this role as ministers, you're given something called the Ministerial Briefing Notes, and this is the one for Ministry of Communication, Works, Energy and Labour. And it has in it all the different projects that were done, how far they are, how much money has been spent so far, and how much is remaining, so it gives you an idea as the new minister of how situation lies. And if you just go back and directly read what's under the Port Little Bay Development EU 2019-2023, and it directly said in the notes that I was given, the Class 3 cost estimates are above budget available. I'm going to repeat that. Class 3 cost estimates are above budget available. Consultants are presently revising the port design concept to match the available budget. Expected completion of this design revision is the end of November 2019. So again, so that people understand, this is the briefing notes I was given, which basically said that the estimates for the port were way above budget. And from the information gathered, it was 3 times over budget. And that the consultants are presently revising the port design concept to match the available budget. This is what I met on my desk, and this is what I reported to the public. The discussions are currently happening about how best to proceed. So it's not a matter that I or the new administration change anything that they have met. It is just reporting what was there before. There's nothing here that speaks about phase 1 is being completed or a phase approach is being used. All that was said is that it was above budget and they're trying to match it to the budget, and that was what was reported. Wherever controversy or politics that people want to play, well, that is their role. The other project that I didn't speak about last week was the airport facilities improvement. And again, based on my notes, it is stated, and I'm going to read directly, it is estimated that this phase will cost more than the available money allocated based on market indications. So based upon what I was given, they expected that the airport facilitation improvement, and that's basically for the control tower, will be over budget. Why this is important, because in discussions so far, what's been basically stated from our funding agencies is that all of these projects should come out of the famous CIPREG program which we were given, which is £30 million. So we've been told as a government, wherever expenses come up in the capital projects, take it out of the CIPREG program and see where that goes. Why that is interesting and why that is important, because one of the fundamental things we have said at this government is that we are working together as one government. And our number one priority is the hospital. Because we don't have the full costing of the hospital, and the hospital is coming out of the CPREG program, and we are committed to build this hospital. So we would like to know first, as an administration, as a government, is an idea of the cost of the hospital. After you have an idea of the cost of the hospital, and that's out for, there's a tender out for that, after you have that cost, then you can tie in the other programs that the other ministers and the other departments would like to conduct. So just to let the public understand, until we have a true cost of the hospital, and since all of these capital projects, except the solar and some of them that comes out of the EU grants, most are coming out of the CPREG program. And in some sense, it will not be wise to expend the funds from the CPREG program, and you're not sure how much will be remaining for the hospital, and we need to build a hospital. So that's the number one priority. Fiber, somebody asked on the last stream about Fiber, the company, that contract is signed, and that should be coming. The discussions are now taking place after the Fiber lands in Buncombe Bay. What will happen on the earth part, the terrestrial part, to get the Fiber to its station. That has some interesting consequences, because the ducting from Buncombe Bay to this side of the island, which is not coming, is not complete. So there has to be some synergy between Public Works, MCWL, and government, who's doing the ducting if they choose to, and the Fiber company, so that there's some kind of synergy happening, and you don't dig up the road to cover it back up, to dig it back up. And then what's going to be interesting going forward, the final thing that took place this week that I need to mention is that we had a meeting of the core management team, and that basically was to get a meet with the permanent secretaries, etc., to chart a way forward for Montserrat. From that meeting, not that we didn't know, but it became more relevant, and something the public need to understand. Submissions for next year's budget was already done from the last administration. So we now have a limited time, which we have done, to go through those submissions, see if we want to modify, tweak, and change anything to get into the draft budget so that we can see where it's going. Because one of the fundamental policies of this government is that the capital projects are fine and they must be done. But how do you tie that into economic development and into sustainable development? So for my end, in communication and works, after you have the Fiber, what programs do you put in place to take advantage of the Fiber? So in my next programs, I'm now working with the ICT coordinator to develop 2 specific programs. And you're going to see the reason why these programs are chosen, and chosen in such a way. Because we have to make sure that although we get the capital projects, that we have things around them, or people are trained, the businesses are ready, so that when these capital projects come online, the port, the Fiber, etc., that we have people who can take advantage of them. And with that, it seems that our 10 minutes is over. So I'm going to ask you to tune in again next week. We are going to continue this program. Again, if you have questions, comments, leave them, and I'll try to answer them in the next program. It might be necessary to expand the program, but we'll see how that goes. But for now, enjoy your weekend and be good.